Okay, Pasha's turned her phone on. All right, let's get started. We appreciate all you guys joining, and I'm gonna show you the description of this first seminar in a second, but I wanted to introduce our distinguished guests, of whom we have three. One is Justice Broderick, John Broderick, and I'll let you guys introduce yourselves in a second. Coach Sean McDonald, UNH football emeritus, and Jack Lucerian, who, as I mentioned, is a senior at Bates playing lacrosse. John, you want to Justice Broderick, you want to just say a couple of syllables to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yes. The reason I'm here and the reason I've been involved with Jeff now for several years is I have devoted the last 6 years of my life, after having served on our Supreme Court and as Dean of our law school at UNH. I devoted the last 6 years of my life traveling throughout New England. I've been to 5 of the 6 New England states. I've driven 92,000 miles. I've spoken to over 100,000 young people, grades 6 through 12, about mental health awareness. And more importantly, thousands of those kids have spoken to me in confided conversations in gyms and auditoriums all across the Northeast. I probably hugged more kids with wet eyes in the last 6 years than anybody alive. And as a result of that, I've learned a lot about what this generation is dealing with. Some of them are athletes. Some of them are outstanding athletes. Some of them don't play sports. A lot of the stressors are the same. And so what I'm really going to be sharing tonight is not what I think, but really what kids have shared with me, which is really more important, I think.
Thanks, Judge. Coach?
Yep. Sean McDonald. I coached college football for some 40-something years. I actually started my coaching career at West High in Manchester, New Hampshire. Worked my way up through every division in college football, from Division III, Division II, Division I at Boston College, and then at New Hampshire. I'm here because Jeff and the judge have been good enough to include me in some recent conversations about helping their reconnection project, about helping kids in the digital age. I've seen some major changes, I think, in young people in the past 5 to 6 years, especially at the collegiate level. And I think it's very important that I hear what you guys are thinking, what you're hearing, and then have some discussions about how we can hopefully make this situation a little bit better.
Thanks, Coach. And Jack, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hey, my name's Jack Lucerian. I'm from Mansfield, Massachusetts. I graduated Middlesex School in 2018, and I met Jeff through one of my best friends there. And currently I'm a senior at Bates. So I finish up in about a month, if all goes well.
Congratulations. I'm Jeff Levin. I started my career teaching school in Mass, teaching junior high. Went back to grad school, got a master's in social work, became a therapist, watched the progression of the culture. The bookmarks I like to use are the O.J. Simpson trial in this country, Columbine 94, Columbine in 99, 01, 9/11 in New York, and then a very accelerated, rapid descent into a culture that I think is unkind to kids in terms of confidence and joy and connection and so on, and increasingly unkind to parents and families and schools. And I think, according to the Surgeon General and Judge Broderick and myself, we have a mental health crisis in this country with kids. And the Reconnection Project is all about trying in very sensible and community-oriented ways to treat that crisis and help kids know that they can be happy and how to be confident. So I did see Ryan Quigley. Coach, you mind introducing yourself?
How's everybody doing? I'm glad I've been able to jump on here finally. My name is Ryan Quigley. I'm the Wellness Department Chair at Norwood High School in Massachusetts. Known Jeff for quite a few years now, going back to, I think my time, I was the athletic director at Ashland High. What was that, Jeff? 2011 2012, I think.
Time's flying. You're 65, coach.
And then I moved on to a few other districts in the meantime. I was the AD at Norwell High down the South Shore. And I sort of done the full circle. Started as a teacher, moved on to administration, and I'm back teaching. I'm fortunate in that sense that even as a department chair, I'm still able to teach in the gym and have much more, sort of meaningful interaction with the students, middle school and high school. So, Jeff and I have had lots of great discussions about this topic. Mental health of our students in general, but also the impact of the digital age that we live in. And again, just happy to finally get a free moment here to join the chat and learn something from everybody. That's what it's all about, really. Just the collaboration that's going to go on here tonight.
Yeah, thanks. I'm gonna share the screen and tell you what this is all about. But half of the people on this call were asked and invited by me, and I would say 3,000 parents were apprised of this call. And I think it's a sign that we have 7 parents on here of how busy folks are. Trust me, I'm super glad to have the 7 of you guys on here. We're going to do these every other Tuesday. If you or the school district pays for the whole thing, it's $100 for a whole school to have it. We'll have the recordings available to you. So if you email me, and I'll put my phone and email in the chat, hey, can I get a recording of this thing? Even though you're on it, I'll email it to you. And if your friends are interested, please let them know about it. Our kids are struggling, and if that weren't the case, I know you wouldn't be on here. Let me share the screen and give you the outline for tonight, and then we'll jump into it. This sign was made at Smithfield, Rhode Island High School hockey. The boys, one of the kids' dads is a carpenter and made this sign. Play free and love each other. And at the bottom, these are stones from down the beach in epoxy that symbolizes grit. Playing free, loving each other, playing with grit is what I think we all did as kids. Today's kids struggle with that, trust me. And we need to teach these kids the skills that we all learned by osmosis. We need to get intentional about it. So today, April 19th, the cultural factors that hold kids back. The new parenting playbook, the overwhelming tragedy list, outcome fever, elephants and gremlins. The new parenting playbook, present company excluded, is a phenomenon where we're going to prepare the road for the child and we're going to enable kids. And we're not going to teach them what grit really is, right? The new parenting playbook. I'll leave it to yourselves to examine your conscience and wonder, have I gotten swept up in the new parenting playbook? But I think you must know what I mean when I use that term. Your daughter gets a C+ in AP Bio, and instead of saying, well, honey, why didn't you study? The comment is, well, let me call your teacher. That's not right. There must be a problem. In sports, we have Ronnie Rainey's the Dartmouth women's soccer coach. Hi, Ron, how are you?
Hey, everyone.
Coach Mack. Kyle Hanford coaches football down at Brunswick School. Did I get that right, Coach? No, you're muted, Coach.
I'm coaching hockey at Williston, Northampton.
I knew I made that mistake. Kyle Hanford's coaching hockey at Williston, Northampton. Sean McDonald coached college football for 40 years. Jack Lucerarian's been playing sports his whole life. Can any of you guys comment on the new parenting playbook? What are you guys seeing? The new parenting playbook. Jump right in. Don't leave Levin in the lurch. Anybody?
It's very much hold on one second. I got kids coming in from sports. It's very much keeping up with the Joneses. I heard a great podcast where they were gentleman was calling it the hockey, at least in hockey, the hockey industrial complex, where everybody's got to keep up. Everybody's got to keep up, and there's this pressure as moms and dads that if we're not doing that for our kids, we're screwing them over. And when I think back to 30, 40 years when I started, 35 years ago when I started playing, my parents took me to the rink, and we had a good time for a few months out of the year, and then we did something else. And do you want to go to hockey camp? Yeah, let's go to hockey camp, and maybe for a week. But then we were doing other things, and it's definitely not that way right now. And I see kids. I see kids going to rinks, and it's just getting on on the hockey treadmill and just going, tying your skates, getting out on the ice, getting off, going to a skills coach. There's no passion, there's no love, there's no shinny in the backyard anymore, and my old man, 73, still skates once a week, and with his buddies from growing up, and there's that passion there that I don't see in kids these days. So, and it's because of moms and dads who are trying to keep up with everybody else.
Thanks. I'm seeing the chat. Jack Lucerian's asking for a link to the parenting playbook. Do I have it? I wish I did have it written down. Someone else says parenting has become a competitive sport. Dylan and Mrs. Rivetti, you guys are in Canada and your kids playing hockey at Williston?
Connecticut, but yes, our son will play there next year. Yes.
So Mr. Lambrinos is from, so are you parents, do you guys feel, Tim Collins, Ryan, you're a parent, Ronnie, you're a parent. Do you feel yourself getting swept up in the new parenting playbook? Anybody want to comment? Because I know as a kid, my dad never went to a game. He didn't have time. He certainly didn't go to a practice. So we grew up in a different time, but is any of you guys getting swept up in the new parenting playbook?
I'm at the early stages of it. I only have a 7-year-old. I have two. I have a 7-year-old and I have a 4-month-old. But it's interesting that Coach Hanford, talking about hockey. We've reached a point where, I'm listening to comments. My son just finished his first season of Mite Hockey, and I'm listening to parents in the stands early Sunday morning talking about club hockey, and essentially the only reason they're getting their kid, and by the way, paying upwards of what, $5-6 grand a season. Okay. The only reason they're getting their kids involved in this club hockey is because in their mind, it's uber competitive and their kid is going to get passed. Now, these are 7-year-old kids. So you can see the foundation being laid, the bricks are being laid at that young age. And, in a short period of time here, another year or two, these kids are listening, they're hearing, they're observing these conversations and behaviors, and they sort of get programmed from the onset in the wrong way. That they're not playing the sport for the love, for the passion, the backyard fun. There's really little, what I would call authenticity to it, and more just like Coach said, keeping up with the Joneses. I think we all know as adults, these club sports, doesn't matter what sport it is, they're money makers. It's watered down. Sure, you might have a coach with a great resume. Soccer is another sport. Again, I could go on and on because I've been an athletic director in 2 places, one very competitive, successful, affluent town, and another just sort of middle of the road. But these are the realities from a very young age.
Yeah, there's no question. Any other comments on the new parenting playbook before I go back to my outline? Coach, Jack, anybody?
You called me out, Jeff, on this as well. Following up on Mr. Quigley's comments. So, there's a generational aspect as well. When when I'm in my 50s, when I was growing up, we were allowed, I grew up near a pond, we were allowed to just leave and take off with our friends after school, and parents wanted us home by dark, and they didn't watch us, they didn't worry about, perverted the trench coat, grabbing.
Tim, your audio is a little screwed up. Whack the computer or something.
Oh, I'll put on my
Whatever you just did, help.
Oh. Put it on in a second. Give me a second.
Yeah, I think Tim is referencing the freedom that we all enjoyed as kids, right? That's where he's going with this. We get the tech going here.
Stopping the whole thing.
Jack Lucerian, how much time do you have for us? I know you're in the middle of exams.
All good tonight. Finish my stuff up.
Attaboy.
Jeff, just talking about, listening to what you're talking about, the parenting playbook hasn't gotten to the college level as much as I've heard from the high school coaches, the Pop Warner coaches, the Little League coaches, with the parent participation,
Right.
involvement in it. College is a little bit different situation, but I'm seeing a little more. I saw a little bit more of that later in my coaching career, whether it was an email, a text, or something. But most of the parents weren't around to go to practice or do those things at the college level. I actually invited some parents to come watch practice so I could show them what I saw and what we saw as a competitive nature or way their kids were participating in practicing.
Gotcha.
Jeff, I'm back.
Preston.
Sorry, for the interruption there. Yeah, I'm in my 50s, and when I was growing up, I grew up near a lake. And when I came home from school, my parents simply threw me out of the house, and my mother would say, "Don't come back before dark." And so we go off, we'd skate at the local pond, we'd have snowball fights, we'd play sandlot baseball. And now everything is just so organized and compartmentalized, and we are in many ways, controlling our kids because we don't want them on the streets. We don't want that, pervert in the trench coat grabbing them off the streets. So we're throwing them into organized sports. And my kids are older. Danny, who's at Middlesex, he's a senior. He's our youngest. We've seen it with our other kids. They don't, they've been sort of pushed by us. We're caught up in it as well, keeping up with the Joneses and so forth, to play these competitive sports. But they weren't allowed to ride that bike after school and to take off for 3 hours at a time.
Yeah, there's no question that part of the new parenting playbook is overstructuring our kids. I don't think anybody's doing any of this stuff deliberately at all. But let me jump on back to this outline. The overwhelming tragedy list is real. That's global warming, school shootings, 60% rise in suicide, phone addiction, social media. The overwhelming tragedy is so named because nobody wants to talk about it. And as I am convinced that as an adult body, parents, teachers, coaches, I think kids know at some level we're not dealing with it. Just look at Washington, D.C. So I think that's a big factor. And I think it's related to the new parenting playbook. I think people realize this world's pretty screwy. I'm going to try to take care of my kid. It's human nature. And let me just go back to the outline. Outcome fever is a term my wife, who's on this call, Miranda, someplace lower left for me, coined about 1.5 years ago and said, you know what, these kids have outcome fever. I don't know en français how you would put that, but I think, Coach Rainey, you see that at a high level Ivy League college when kids screw up. I think you see it. I know Kyle's talking to his kids on dorm duty down there. Coach Quigley, you coach basketball. Sean Mack, outcome fever. Let me ask you, Jack, the term outcome fever, what does that mean to you as a 22-year-old young man playing? You've been playing lacrosse for 8 years at a high level. Do you see that in yourself? Do you see outcome fever in your buddies?
Yeah, definitely. It's just like everything is so results driven. And I think it kind of starts in school too with academics, but you're constantly being compared and evaluated as most people are, but you'll put all this work in, you'll do all this extra stuff, whether it be sports or school, and then someone tells you that you're not good enough or you're not smart enough or whatever it is. So none of that work you did before matters, especially when your parents are telling you it doesn't matter, you have to do more. Because you didn't get, that result or that outcome. I think that's what you're saying.
That is what I'm saying. And we did a call with Jack and his buddy who goes to Dartmouth, plays rugby, and Mike Doherty, who goes to Northwestern and plays baseball. And I'll always remember this, Jack. A couple of years ago, we did that call. And Jack said, look, Levin, I've been grinding, which is a term that's entered the lexicon the last 10 years. I've been grinding. I got to qualify for this thing to get to the next thing. And you said, here I'm at base playing lacrosse. What does it all mean, right? So as a psychologist, when you add up the new parenting playbook, the overwhelming tragedy list, the outcome fever, I see in my clinical practice a lot of kids bouncing out of college who just can't find meaning in life. They're not happy because everything is results driven. That's what outcome fever adds up to. And Jack, as a early 20s young man, do you and your buddies talk about outcome fever? Do you talk about the new parenting playbook, all the pressure?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, everyone, even the kids who are still playing, very few kids love it like they used to. You know, I lost the love for lacrosse, which is what I play at Bates now, probably summer after my junior year, just because I was going to so many tournaments, lost my whole summer, you know, doing all this stuff. And I guess that, you know, it was to play in college, but at some point it became my dad wanting it more than I did. And so by the time I got to Bates, I didn't like lacrosse that much. And I've succeeded here, you know, I'm a team captain. I've liked it. I've liked the friends I've made. But to say that I still like the sport, and you know, would just be a lie. And that happened in soccer too. It happened for me even earlier. I remember soccer when I was 12, I got switched club teams and I was told, you know, I had to quit all my other sports. And I was just like, no way. And by 14, 15, I had lost love for that sport. And I was so much better at that sport. So I wish I hadn't, but you know.
And what I struggle with, I honestly struggle. My wife and I don't have kids. And I feel like I probably would have got caught up in all this stuff too. But to hear Jackie go, yeah, I was playing 3 sports and they told me, my club coach told me you have to quit. Hello. You know, I'll guarantee you that anybody over the age of 45 on this call, my friend in Quebec, and I bet you fellas, maybe Mrs. played sports, played all kinds of sports, tried the various smorgasbord of life, right? I got to ask you parents, and a lot of you don't have your cameras on. I feel guilty, this new parenting playbook, right? Like I'm indicting parents, like you screwed up. That's not at all where I'm coming from. I think we see an international phenomenon with the parent thing. Does any of you parents want to comment? It's tough. You're about an inch tall, so I can't see who wants to say something. Anybody? Christina?
No, I got nothing.
You got nothing. How about Dylan, Miss Rivetti? Anybody? Parents? Pasha? Just want to make sure you, please jump in anytime on this thing.
I mean, to be honest, we have this conversation all the time. Like we had it yesterday. We said our kids aren't as street smart as we are. I mean, we protected them, and you know, my son's a way better hockey player than I ever was. But you know, I worry about sending him out on the streets without us. You know, I mean, he's a good kid, and he probably trusts too much. You know, but we have this conversation all the time.
So you see a measure of naivete in the boy that you and the missus didn't have, right? Because we learned in the school of hard knocks more so. Coach, I heard you snickering. Did you have a comment on that?
You know, just it's funny to hear the voices of talking about that, you know, about, and we live in Durham, New Hampshire, and small community, great community. You know, I was always very leery of my sons leaving Durham and going outside their comfort zone to different places. But the best thing that was for them was that they were around a university and got to see older kids, college kids doing their own things and stuff like that. It's really a great teaching and learning experience for our kids. I laugh just thinking about the night, worried about your son, you know, not being too street smart. And I've run into a bunch of kids like that I've coached that are in their freshman, sophomore year, not having a lot of common sense on things.
Hey, Jeff, I just want to jump in for a minute. And I'm just recounting what I've heard around New England. My sense is that kids today it's coming from a loving place. I have no doubt about that, but they are not given the independence or the freedom to figure out who they are or the time to do that. So if you're a good hockey player in the 7th grade, you're a good hockey player, and that's the focus. If you're a good math student in the 9th grade, you're going to be a math genius, and that's the focus. Kids are over-organized, over-competing, over-stressed. Jeff and I had a Zoom call a couple of years ago with 2 high school seniors, very bright kids, co-captains of their high school hockey team. One was president of the senior class. And I recounted to him my high school years, which had a lot of free time in them. And I said, can you relate to that? He said, I can't relate to a single thing you just said. I'm in the rink every day at 6:30. I shut my lot at 11:30 at night. I have no free time. The other kid, also a senior, said, I don't think I ever had a childhood. We are shortening childhood. I'm hugging the consequences of it. These kids are scared to death to fail, whatever that means to them. They do not want to disappoint their parents. They're in more sports than anybody can intelligently handle. If you're not on a travel team at age 12, you're not going to make the varsity in high school. And the irony to me is, having grown up at a different age and love sports myself, is that I didn't play professional sports. And there was a reason for that. I didn't have the skill set to do it. But my guess is if I had, I would have found my way to professional sports or college sports. The number of kids playing varsity sports in high school who go on to play varsity sports in college with a full or partial ride is probably under 2%. What are we doing to kids? The number of people who play Division I college sports, who play pro sports after that, is probably less than 2%. And I think some of it comes from the fact that college is way more expensive than it used to be. I get that. But I think these kids are not allowed to develop as they want. The last thing I want to tell you is this is an 8th grade student. I had lunch with 8 8th grade girls one day. So you can imagine how thrilled they were to be with the old guy. So I said to them, hey, I understand your generation is stressed. Is that right? Oh my God, they thought I was so smart. They're all smiling at me. I can see the braces. And they said, we are so stressed. I said, yeah, that's what I've heard. Why is that? They said, we're always trying to accomplish the next thing, so we'll be eligible for the thing after that. I don't know about you, but that was not my 8th grade life. And one of those girls who did most of the talking was described to me as the best athlete in the 8th grade, boy or girl. And I said to her, what sport do you play? She said, I play soccer. I said, you must love soccer. You know what her answer was? Well, it takes an awful lot of my time. I said, well, I suppose you don't have to play soccer. Oh, she said, I have to play. I'm the best player. Nobody would ever let me quit. If I'd been able to say to that 8th grade girl, guess what? You don't have to do that. She would have hugged me at lunch. And I guarantee you, she's the soccer star in her family and in that school. That's what I'm talking about. If kids want to play sports, go for it. We have so professionalized it. And there are too many parents living vicariously through their kids' athletics, period, hard stop. And don't take my word for it. I hear it all the time from kids. I hear all the time kids, and they don't have the courage to say to their parents, I don't think I want to do this year. That's what we've got to address. It's not that we're anti-athletics. God knows I love sports. I played sports, but I played because I wanted to play, not because somebody was pressuring me to play. And if I wanted to quit, my parents might have said, are you sure you want to do that? You want to quit? But if I said yes, I was allowed to quit. I think those days are gone. And I think kids are showing the effects of it. Not all kids, but you know, when you hear Jack here, he's obviously a great athlete. And he's saying to you, I'm not sure I really love this sport anymore. They drove it out of me. That's on all of us, not on him. Not on him. That's the discussion that needs to happen. And kids need to hear it, because kids sometimes are so frightened to say to their parents, I don't want to do this, or I don't enjoy this anymore, because that's not what's going to make their parents happy. I hike it all around New England, so it's not just me saying it. This week, I've hugged 3 athletes who opened up to me about their mental health problems. And they don't tell their parents, they tell me, a perfect stranger. And there are a lot of athletes dealing with anxiety and depression. There are a lot of athletes that are doing great too, believe me. But there are a lot of kids who aren't. And parents are too involved in their kids' sports. That's what I honestly believe.
John, thank you. There were 2 comments in the chat. One of them is JB nailed it. Every word is spot on. Justice Broderick speaks the truth. It's a hard pill to swallow, right? The second comment was, I gave somebody a gentle hard time about not turning their camera on, and they wrote to me and said, I was preparing dinner, I had a long day, I'm really sorry. And what I'm saying is, there are some hard things we need to discuss together. And you go on Zoom calls and people don't turn their cameras on, but you walk down the street and everybody's on a phone, so I've guilt tripped Iris into it. So the need for us all as adults to connect and talk about the kid mental health crisis is paramount to me. And I can spend my time being upset that there aren't 412 people on here, but I'm not going to do that. We're just going to keep going ahead with this reconnection project the best way we can. And that brings me to the topic of solutions. We're halfway through this thing, right? Do you have your hand up there, Tammy?
Yeah, I have a comment. I think my experience is different from everything I've heard so far because my son plays hockey. He didn't play hockey until he was 9 years old. And he said, Mom, I want to play hockey. We let him play and we've never pushed him. We would organize camps if and when he wanted to do camps. And he's not good enough to play with his friends, and his friends now make fun of him because he's not good enough. And we want him to play for fun, but he can't even play for fun because all of the other kids have been playing since they were 4. And he's now depressed because he tried really hard. He gave it his all. He didn't make this, all of his friends are making varsity and JV swing, and he's on the JV team, and his friends are making fun of him because of it. And so it's no longer fun for him, and he doesn't want to do it anymore. So he can't. So if you wait and you're not getting caught up in all of this, like we chose to let our kids do what you want, enjoy it. You should have fun. And now they can't have fun because they're not good enough.
Is it weird? Do you live in the States or up in Canada, Tammy?
I'm in the States. I never played sports myself ever growing up. I mean, and
I was just gonna say, I think it's sad that your son wants to play recreational hockey, and maybe Kyle, who's a hockey coach at Williston and Mass, can comment. But I think it's sad that there's nowhere for the boy to play hockey, really sad. Is that?
Well, I think there's a place to play, but none of his friends play there. So all of his friends are playing for the high school. And it's not fun to go play with people he doesn't know or can't hang out with.
Gotcha.
He wants to play with his friends.
Gotcha.
And, and even the coach, he was the only kid on the entire hockey team who had to try out 7 days in a row just to be told he didn't make the team. Every other kid found out way earlier, and just the way the coach did it was just wrong, in my opinion. Dragged him out, made him think he might get it all 7 days, 2.5-hour practices, 7 solid days in a row, and then to go, nah, you're not good enough.
Did the coach
he was the only kid that went all 7 days.
Did coach let him know on day 3 or 4, hey son, listen, if you really want to,
no. I mean, it's sad to see how even the coaches are doing it too.
Any comment? We have several coaches on here. Any comment?
Sorry, I mean, at least this is my experience. It's not just
all good.
parents doing this, it's the coaches too.
It's all good. In our society, there's so many people fighting about nonsense. We have to get together and have a collaborative conversation. So Kyle, did you want to say something?
Yeah, Tammy, what I'm hearing about your son, what I'm hearing from the boys is from those kids that are making fun of, that's the bigger issue I think we have, is that we have young men who don't know how to treat their quote unquote friends or other people. And there's that culture that is alive that if somebody's not as good as we are, we can make fun of them. And where's your son's buddies who are like, hey man, that really sucks, but we got your back. And it's one thing that Derek and I are doing at Williston right now, where we're changing our culture, and we're changing the culture of guys picking on guys. And a couple years ago, we had a room where guys thought it was okay to make fun of a guy who was in a scoring drought. And, you know, I was talking to one of our players who was new and was a high caliber kid and had played with high caliber kids. And I said, what was it like in your dressing room when you were playing for X, Y, or Z team? And he goes, you know, we'd make fun of the kid who was already committed to Providence when he'd wear his Providence sweatshirt in, you know, hey, where are you going, buddy? Because he already had a full ride to Providence. Right. And you don't pick on the kid that doesn't score goals. And you know, that it stinks that that's the culture of that hockey program, Tammy. And I like to think that what we're doing at Williston is going to be revolutionary for the young men that we have coming in, that guys care about the guy next to him, and that if their buddy makes JV, that they're still buddies with him and they're still hanging with him. And the bigger picture is young men and how to deal with their emotions. Because those guys, Jeff, you can speak to this, man. Those guys that are picking on your son, they're dealing with their own issues, and that's the thing that needs to change.
The amount,
Yeah. I've also seen numerous times where he's borderline A-B team, and he always got pushed down. And if he had been able to make the A team, you rise to the level of play that you're playing, right?
right,
And so it's almost as if like the coaches and everyone else have made the choices to slot him into a B player ever since he started. And there was many times he could have gone either way, and he had the desire and showed up and wanted to, and not a single coach ever said, give this kid a shot on a better team and he'll rise to the occasion.
I think it's complicated. The bullying discussion back in the day, I never thought I'd use this terminology, but if you were bullied to a point where you were offended as a boy, you would say, listen, do you want to solve this outside? We'll figure this out. And that boys are not allowed to fight anymore. Period. Hard stop. Jack, you're shaking your head, right? So boys can't fight. Number one. Number two, I think coaches have gotten swept up in outcome fever. So they see Tammy's kid and he's a bubble kid, whereas Coach Mack and anybody who coached on this call would say, hey, son, you're almost there, buddy. You can do this. Let's go. I think a lot of coaches are just saying, this kid's never going to be good enough. The heck with him. And I hate to say it, but I think we have to have some truthful conversations if we're going to get to the bottom of this stuff. Anybody want to comment on the bullying or the outcome fever that's affecting coaches? Yes, no? 20-minute warning from Abby Peel. I'm reading the chat. Go ahead. Did I hear somebody? No? I don't know what that is. So I want to talk about solutions. Okay. Elephants and gremlins, just to follow the elephants are all the stuff on the overwhelming tragedy list we never talk about. Okay. Gremlins are your negative.
An experience
I'm sorry.
daughter has and she played also you in New Hampshire. Am I okay?
Uh-huh. I'm sorry, Iris, that's you talking? Iris? Abby, have we lost Iris?
It was her talking, but I'm not sure. Her video is blank.
Iris, did you have something you wanted to say?
We lost her. I'll let you know if she reconnects.
Must have a difficult connection. The gremlins, the negative self-talk. You're a parent. I need you to shut off your phones and ask your kids how they're really doing. I was on a Zoom call tonight. I heard about things called gremlins. I heard about something called outcome fever. I heard about the new parenting playbook, overwhelming tragedy list. Shut the phones off, talk to the kids, listen to the kids. That's my best advice. Come back on this call in 2 weeks. I got to put my contact info in the chat. Get in touch with me. We need to solve this problem. At WPI since August, there have been 8 suicides. Is that okay with anybody? I know it's not. 8 suicides, all boys, WPI, Worcester, Mass, Worcester Polytechnic Institute. At my alma mater, Dartmouth, where Ronnie coaches girls soccer, there were 3 suicides last. This is not okay. So there are 2 miracles that we can create by continuing this conversation. One is prevent, God forbid, tragedies like that. But second, give kids an opportunity to do what they love and figure out who they are. It's not rocket science. The second bullet point, develop a felt sense of the granular difference between our childhood and those of the students. Trust me, I hear it all the time. Tim Collins, we rode our bikes, we swam, we played sandlot football, we played with our friends. Kids aren't doing that, and it's affecting them. Talk to your kids about it. The third bullet point, the importance of working with the truth, develop a full understanding of the digital age and what we call digititis, as well as a discussion of the iceberg of student anxiety. We've touched on this. Above the surface of the water, the Titanic hit the iceberg, right? Above the surface, we see increased suicide and stress. Below the surface, believe me when I tell you, and I think Coach Hanford, Coach Quigley, Coach McDonald, people, Rainey, that work with kids every day, kids are anxious. They absolutely have outcome fever, guaranteed. Jack Lucerarian's 22. It's real, people. Outcome fever is real. The new parenting playbook, which has a negative effect on kids, if you've gotten caught up in this current, we don't have kids. I'm sure I would have gotten caught up in it the same way, but listen to your kids and take a look at the way you're raising your kids. Tammy said it too. Back in the day, we were all raised in a very different way. It's affecting kids. So I want to leave time for discussion. I see, Iris, your comment, and I'll read it. I think your connection is no good. I'll read your comment. As a takeaway, stop the film, shut the devices off, talk to your kids. I mean, John, how old is your kid? How old is your son or daughter, John?
He's 18.
He's playing hockey, you said?
Yeah, he's playing hockey for Williston.
How do you think he's doing, generally?
Well, academically, he's doing good. Hockey wasn't his best season last year, and he took it very serious. We tried to instill what you said, have fun, and who cares? But him, if he plays hockey and he doesn't do good one day, he doesn't want to talk to me for like 2-3 days. He goes, he's missing, he's not there. And then when we finally talk to him, we finally tell him, like, don't worry, it's, one day at a time, it's just chill out. But he takes it very, very, very personal.
And Danny Collins, Tim, your son, same way, has a bad outing on the mound, doesn't want to talk to mom and dad, right, Tim? It's the same thing. I mean, what are Dylan and Mrs. Rivetti, what do you got? How old is your kid? What are you guys seeing? I'm picking on the people with the camera on. Maybe that's why they leave it off.
We have 4 children, 3 hockey players. Our son Dylan is 17, going to Williston. Broke my heart a couple years ago. He was a really good soccer player, and he had a bad injury in soccer, so a broken collarbone. So he decided to just focus on hockey. But Dylan's a pretty focused kid. He's a pretty laid back kid. He lives in Connecticut, but he's like a surfer from California. He's really relaxed. He goes with the flow. I probably get a little more upset in bad games than he does. So he's a better person than me.
There you go. There you go. Kyle Hanford smiling. So you have a surfer on the team, Kyle?
No, but I like that. I like that mindset. I mean, so many of these kids we're all wound up so tight. We're all looking for outcomes, and it's we just got to kind of enjoy the process, right? I'm dealing with seniors right now who are working on capstones in English, and they're getting to the end of their high school careers. Some of them have been here for 6 years through middle school. Some are postgrads, and you blink and you miss it. And I have 3 kids, and the first thing that parents tell you is that, man, it goes by so fast, and it's the truth. And especially now, seeing my students and stuff like that. Hey guys, got you. I'm on duty tonight too, so I'm just checking in.
All those kids to be quiet, Hanford.
I know, right? Loud mouths. But they're just so focused on the next thing that they don't get to appreciate that moment. And Jeff, I'll never forget it. Jeff spoke to our guys a couple years ago, and he said, you can't have a foot in the past and a foot in the future, because you'll piss on the present. And I'll never forget that, because it's very true. And we try to tell that to our guys all the time. Live now,
No,
Yeah.
Jeff, can I jump in for a second? Just to give it a different perspective. If I were interviewing Jack here from Bates for a job, and Jack said, I went to Middlesex School, I went to Bates College, I played varsity lacrosse, I guarantee you I would never say to Jack, how many goals, Jack, did you score? How many games did your team win? Nobody gives a damn. Okay, they don't in the broader world. But Jack, going to a great school and playing a varsity sport, I'd probably want to hire Jack, because he can do things that many people can't do. I think we have forgotten what high school sports is about. It's not about preparation for the pros, because very few of those kids are playing pro football or pro hockey. It's not going to happen. It's a dream that mostly won't come true. And so we are setting kids up for disappointment. Jeff and I were talking to a principal in New Hampshire one day, and he told us he had a basketball player on the high school team who was a C+ student. And of the 5 kids on the team, he said he's probably the least talented. So I said, where's he going with that? And he said, his parents tell me, parents tell the principal that his son's going to Duke on a basketball scholarship. I said, does the kid believe that? He said, I think so. I said, he'll be lucky to drive by the campus. He's not going to Duke on a basketball scholarship. And you're going to devastate that young man when he realizes that. Maybe he'd get into a Division III school and be a starter. We have lost focus on what it's about. And unless until we change that, we're going to have a lot of kids who are going to be casualties. And I hug them all the time.
And John,
that's got to change.
John's right. And we have 8 parents on here, so we want to continue the conversation. Iris writes, my daughter had a terrible experience in basketball. The middle school coach was a bully. He only cared about winning. The girls were crying every single game. And there are stories about that kind of a thing where I feel like there have always been bullies, right? And some of them enter coaching. But I don't know about you, Mac, and some of you guys are involved in sports, but I'm seeing more of that. I'm seeing more coaches who are caught up. If you have middle school girls crying on any consistent basis, you're probably doing something wrong. Iris, did you want to jump in on it?
Yeah, sure, if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, and as parents, we didn't understand. Our daughter was not a good basketball player. She's pretty much spent most of the time on the bench. So we never pushed her to do it, and we didn't understand her why she kept going. So one parent pulled her daughter out because of the coach, actually, how the coach was treating the girls. The other parents, they wanted the kids to play because of what we have talked about. Even though the girls were every single game, they were crying, they were not happy, but they were doing it for the parents. For myself, we are talking to our daughter, like, do you want to quit? Why not? Like, we really wanted her to quit because she was miserable. For some reason, she still wanted to go. So then high school started, and she's terrified. Like, we can't even mention the word basketball anymore because she's like, oh, that was like trauma. And we're like, but we asked you to quit. Why did you stay? So she's doing running now, and track and field and cross country in the fall, and it's her choice, and she enjoys that. But it just, as a parent, I don't know why she stayed actually, for several years for basketball.
Maybe when she's in her mid-20s, she'll tell you the reason. These isolated instances are deeply troubling. My fantasy is that, that we come to Williston and we create a community there, like Kyle is trying to create the culture in the locker room. Boys, knock it off. There were so many horses out of so many barn doors right now. Many parents don't get it. There are coaches that don't get it. The peer groups are fragile. the overwhelming tragedy list is coming at these people and us at all times. I just feel this conversation is so valuable. Before I forget, we have 8 minutes.
Can I make one more comment? Sorry.
Just say, let me finish my thought and then right back
Okay.
to Iris. I put my contact information just now in the chat. So before I forget this, if you enjoyed this discussion, yeah, Williston Northampton has purchased all 4 of these, and you can get the reruns, the recordings. Please tell your friends, wherever you are, however you heard about this. If your school bought it, you're in for all 4 and you can get the recordings. If not, I think it's maybe 20, 30 bucks. You can buy it for yourself and share it with your friends. But my contact information, phone number, and email are in the chat at this very time. So if you're wondering how you're going to hear about the next one, get in touch with me. That's all I wanted to say. Iris, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so one more thing that we observed is from the coaches, like the travel and AAU, if our daughter was not that good, like why accept her on the team where she just sits on the bench? Like, what's the motivation there? We did not understand that part. Like, don't accept her because she's not playing. And, clearly this lasted for a few years. So I never, as a parent, I didn't understand what the motivation was. I mean, obviously, they're getting money, I guess, but really, that's kind of sad that, the sport is driven by that type of mentality.
That's one of the ugly truths I think you'll find in hockey, soccer, lacrosse, many sports. Maybe not football, coach, because there's no junior football, or AAU football to my knowledge, but money does drive a lot of this. We have 6
Thank you.
minutes. Please, discussion, anybody jump in. Well, that was effective.
I was, Jeff, the last thing I'll sort of add to this is maybe it goes back to the parenting playbook piece earlier on, but the way I see it, we've, as the adults, the parents, we've created this menu for kids. Justice Broderick talked about the overscheduling. I mean, time for some self-reflection, look in the mirror, and try to simplify things. Again, easier said than done. But we have to sort of recalibrate, get that pendulum swinging back the other way in order to really turn this thing around, I think, because at the rate we're going, it's just going to keep snowballing. And again, it's what can we expect young kids, teenagers, teenage minds to do when they're presented with all these different options? And to your point, I love the outcome fever term, because that's what it is right now. These kids are just infatuated with what the outcome is going to be. We have to recalibrate this thing before we do anything else.
The only way to recalibrate it, in my opinion, and I've thought this since we cooked up the Reconnection Project, is the politicians in Washington. This is not going to get recalibrated in this country. It's going to get recalibrated in Norwood, Mass, where you work. It's going to get recalibrated Williston, Northampton, or in Quebec if you invite us to come up, or it's going to have to happen here, there, and at Dartmouth Women's Soccer, at UNH. You know what I'm saying? Like, recalibrate. There's so much, there's a fire hose coming at everybody. I mean, Quigs, I bet you 2,500 people were invited to this thing tonight. It isn't that they don't get it, I guess. They just too busy. You know what I mean? Iris, thank you, has thanked me in the chat. This was really helpful. This perspective is really helpful. We got to do this one community at a time, in my opinion. That's how I look at it. Other thoughts?
Jeff, I just want to share a story with everyone. It's not on sports, but it's the same issue Ryan's talking about, recalibrating. Jeff and I went to Nantucket last November. And if you go to Nantucket in November, they think you're serious. If you go in July, they think you're there for the beach. But we went in November and we were speaking at a middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade kids. It was in the low 50s that day, early November, we were sitting out back of the school, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders on Nantucket Island. And I asked this question of them. I said, if I could promise all of you an 89 on your next test, you pick the subject. These are kids in middle school. You wouldn't have to study anymore. You'll get an 89, or you could study all night long before the test and you'll get a 90. Then I said, how many of you would study all night long? Every hand went up. That's what I'm talking about. When I was in their grade in school, I always said, are you kidding? I'm going to get an 89. I'm on Nantucket. I'm going to go to the beach. They studied all night long. We told the parents that night. One of the mothers in the front row put her head in her hands and kind of groaned. Yeah. These kids are responding to the pressures they feel. There's nothing wrong with the inefficient use of time. I benefited from it greatly. I wasn't scheduled. I could make decisions. Those days are gone. And it's not the kids who are doing that. They are playing to an audience of parents and community members. And God forbid you're talented in hockey or football or whatever it is. You better keep your interest, or you may be like Jack. Jack obviously is smart and very talented, because he wouldn't be a varsity lacrosse player. But what I heard from Jack was, I don't know, some of the joy is gone. Some of the joy is gone.
A lot.
I appreciate his candor. That takes courage to say that. But he's not alone, by the way. There are a lot of kids that feel that way, and they just don't know how to tell you that.
There's no question that this conversation has to continue. You know, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 parents on here, 7, 8. Email me, it's in the chat, or call me or text me. I should be thinking about retiring. As you can tell by looking at me, I'm much younger than Judge Broderick, but I should be thinking about retirement, but I literally cannot do it. I cannot do it. My conscience won't allow me to do it. And we're desperate to get this reconnection project off the ground. In the last minute, Sean McDonald, who's I'm going to embarrass the guy, but he's a living legend in college football. I just want to give you another chance, Sean, to just maybe make some summary remarks if you want to before we sign this off.
The only thing I'd say, Jeff, is that hearing some of the things about, I let and I made my sons play 3 sports. I thought it was so important for them to get into different venues every season. So they enjoyed the switching, and switched from coaches to teammates to different styles of playing. And as a college coach, when I went to recruit, I always had pleasure in watching the football players play another sport, whether it was, you know, basketball or wrestling or track or hockey. You got to see them compete in a different venue, in a different way. So, you know, I remember vividly talking to my boys about, we're going to play 3 sports. We're going to do it now. Never had football in Durham, but they golfed, played basketball and baseball.
Thanks, Coach. Hey, Jack Lucerian, do you have a final comment, son?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to say is, you know, parents aren't always the source of the pressure. A lot of times the pressure comes from other things, whether it be academics or sports, but we are aware of the pressure. And sometimes we don't want to know what you think or what we should do. We just want you to be aware of how we feel. You know what I mean? That's one thing I always wish my parents did, is no, I don't need you to tell me what to do. I know what to do. I know I need to study more. I know I need to shoot more, whatever it is. Just listen that, you know, I'm going through it right now, because there is a lot of pressure. So,
you know, Jack, we can hear the emotion in your voice. And I think it's great advice to the parents. Listen to your kids. It's more important to become a good person than it is to become great at hockey, something like that. And it feels like the parents on this call get it. Pasha says, thanks for the advice. Thank you all. I'm anytime I go over, I hear it from Abby and my wife. So I want to end the call on time. But please get in touch with me, and we're going to do this again in 2 weeks. I hope your school bought this thing. Maybe Williston bought it, I guess. But let us know. And Quiggs, you have any final comment, and then we'll cut it.
No, I mean, look, at the end of the
You have
day,
a 4-month-old, so you're not getting much sleep, but go
not
ahead.
yet. If I look a little ragged, that's why. In fact, that's what I'm going down to deal with right now. But no, I mean, it's, you know, we hear about and we see this phenomenon known as, right, the FOMO, fear of missing out with the kids. Well, again, getting back to the parents, I know Jack said, you know, the parents aren't all to blame, but there's an element here that the parents are afraid of missing out on something, and they've developed that sense of fear of missing out on their own by how competitive they've gotten with each other, whether it's, you know, living vicariously through their kids or just the town they live and or the job they have. So again, you know, let's try to create a new perspective on this whole thing, you know, or rather gain perspective, gain a new perspective on kids in the digital age, mental health, and ultimately just trying to create a happy environment. I mean, if kids aren't happy, I'm sorry, nothing else matters. It really comes down to happiness. You can win all the games you want. Coach can probably talk to this. I mean, at the end of the day, if you can't look back on it and say, you know what, I was happy, I had a good time, I made good friends, I had a genuine experience, it's not worth it.
Close with that. We'll let you guys go. I'm already gonna get fined 3 minutes of overtime. Hope to see you guys in 2 weeks. And Jack, Coach, all you guys, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thanks, everyone.
Coach, Sean, thanks for coming on here.
No problem, Jeff. Anytime.
I appreciate it.
Stay connected. All right, bud.
Yeah, we'll be in touch with you. We'll see what we're gonna do. You're on the links next Tuesday, right? For successive Tuesdays?
Yeah.
You're starting to look like Jack Nicklaus. I gotta be honest with you.
Jesus. Appreciate that, sir.
No,
Appreciate that.
seriously, are you otherwise engaged on the successive Tuesdays?
Tuesdays, yeah. Tuesday's not a good day for me.
Well, we'll figure it out.
All right. Take care.
All right, we'll see you.
Bye, everyone.